Thank you for downloading this episode of Escape Pod. And on this episode, we interview Hollywood makeup effects artist Dave Snyder. Make sure you check out our website, outbreakpodcast.com, and check the show notes under Escape Pod webpage. There are a ton of photos and also several videos of Dave's work in there as well that you don't want to miss. So here we go, episode 9 of Escape Pod. Enjoy.
60 seconds. Best recorders, high speed. Check all batteries. -50. Armed.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Your go for APU
4,
shutdown on
3,
time.
2, 1. Liftoff.
Go at throttle up.
Sure, go and throttle up.
Still on its way to orbit after a successful ascent up through main engine cutoff.
Houston, 20 seconds to LOS TDRS.
Roger. Nice to be in orbit.
This is Escape Pod, part of the Outbreak Micro Broadcasting Network, available at outbreakpodcast.com. David, I'd like me to introduce you to Tony Brown. Say hello, Tony.
Hey, Dave. How you doing, man?
Hey, Tony. I'm good. How are you?
I'm super excited to talk to you, man. It's which actually I don't know how much talking I'll do. I'll probably be doing a whole lot of listening to a bunch of cool stories between you and the old guy here. So,
Ow. Welcome out to Escape Pod. I'm David Anthony.
my name is Tony Brown.
Hey, Tony, what are you drinking?
Today I'm enjoying Deschutes Brewery Mirror Pond Pale Ale.
Woo, that's a lot to say.
Yeah, guys out of Bend, Oregon. Very good beer.
Nice, nice.
What do you got?
I'm drinking my standby, my favorite, my Canadian beer that I like to drink, which is Labatt's Blue. I like it when it's imported. Of course, now maybe it's hard to get as yours, but I do enjoy it. And today we got a very special guest.
Very special.
Very special guest. Friend growing up and known him for a long time. And he is makeup effects artist Dave Snyder. Dave, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing, David?
I'm not doing too bad.
And Tony, how are you?
I'm very excited, man. That's what I was saying earlier. You're probably not going to hear my voice that much, but I'll try to chime in on a few things.
Don't let him fool you. He was already going, oh, he did that movie? Oh, my God, he did that movie? He was in that movie? No, he did that. Oh, so, yeah, don't worry. You're going to be like, Tony got to shut up? Jeez.
Well, I'm excited, too. I think this is going to be fun.
Well, good. Well, hope it is. Hope you enjoy it. Well, here we go. Let's start things off with, I guess, you got started somewhere. You got a passion for the job that you got into, which led to a lot of other things, which we'll get into today. But because we got a whole long list of things to talk about today, this is going to be a good podcast. But how did you? I guess your influences and what inspired you to get started in this makeup effects career?
Well, I always liked monsters and the weird kind of stuff. But growing up, as you recall, us old guys, all we had were the 3 channels on television. There was no video rental. There was no internet. The only way if you wanted to see Frankenstein was you kept looking at TV Guide until somebody finally played Frankenstein. So I liked all that. But then at the ripe young age of 12, Star Wars came out.
Yep.
And it literally, as silly as it sounds, it changed my life, period. For a while, I thought I was interested in doing the type of special effects that are, the spaceships and the models and the miniatures, and I played around with some of that. I got my hands on a Super 8 camera that had single frame capability and played around with stop motion animation. And then in the early 80s, a bunch of movies started coming out, like Altered States, The Howling, American Werewolf in London, where you were seeing a brand new type of makeup. And this is all way pre-digital. This is 10 years before digital was happening. And you were seeing people's faces change on camera and fingernails growing out of their hands and, all this kind of stuff. And I remember walking out of The Howling thinking, that's what I want to do.
Nice.
And it was really, really hard at that time to find any kind of information. It was the odd magazine here and maybe a book from the library. But it was a real challenge. So in the meantime, I was playing around making stuff. I remember you and we did a live cast of you that turned out a little less than successful. I don't remember exactly what happened, but it
I think I was trying to breathe.
Well, the final thing sort of looked like if you went to a fun house and you look in the mirror and you get this weird distorted kind of image. It looked more like that than a proper representation of your face.
Yes,
but,
yes, it did.
And then I just remembered we did that cool burn makeup on you.
Yep, we sure did.
Yeah, and my dad was a firefighter at the time. We borrowed his hat and jacket, I think, and dressed you all up. But anyway, started doing it as a hobby, and then I thought, I didn't have a lot of confidence that I'd be able to move to California and do this for a living, so I took a dental laboratory technology course, which is basically learning to make dentures and gold crowns and all that kind of stuff. If you go to the dentist and you need to have work done, the dentist is not the person who's back there in his little lab fabricating this stuff. He does the work with the patient, and then he sends it to a dental lab, and they make this stuff. Anyway, that's kind of boring.
Mm-hmm. No.
So I did that, which set me up pretty well, because when I finally moved to California, the first job I got was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie.
Yep.
Nice.
Which few people remember, and it was because I could make teeth. They
Paul
needed
Rubens.
Vampire fangs. Yeah, Paul Rubens and your man from Blade Runner.
Yep. Yeah. There was other actors in that movie.
Rutger Hauer. Yeah,
Rutger Hauer. Yep.
And that kid from Beverly Hills, 90210, whatever.
Luke Perry. Didn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, you did what? Obviously, you did the fangs.
Yeah, I did the fangs, and I had a lot of sculpting work in my portfolio, so I sculpted a bunch of ears, sculpted a bunch of forehead appliances that they ended up not using on that film, but that sort of the whole forehead thing came back when they did the series.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, did a lot of work. Also made there are a couple of scenes where Christy Swanson stabs a vampire in the back, and you see the stake come out of his chest.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically built an inflatable stake that we could smush down so the guy's chest looked normal, and then when we hit the air pressure, it would pop out through his shirt and look like a solid piece of wood.
Oh, cool.
And with the proper timing, she would mime it from the back, and we'd be looking at the guy from the front, and you'd see this thing pop out. And so pretty cool. Once again, this was all pre-digital. There was no cheating. It's
right.
Like if you had wires or cables or blood tubes, you had to figure out how to hide that stuff. It wouldn't be like, oh, we'll take that out digitally.
Right. Now you had a lot of influences. I know you were a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
I remember one time sitting around in my living room, you, me, your brother, and there was a couple other people, and we were doing the H.P. Lovecraft board game. Yeah, you remember that, don't you?
Yeah, it was the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game.
Yeah, I remember that all too well. How I did on that one.
It's funny because our other friend Bryce, who lives out in California now, he also recalls that as something like, you walk into a cave, you're dead.
That's pretty much what happened to me.
Yeah,
we found a chest with glasses in it, and it was my turn. You rolled the dice. So what are you going to do? I said, well, I'll put them on. You rolled the dice. You're like, okay, you're in a coma. The rest of the game, everybody else is playing along, and I'm still, go back to my turn. You're still in a coma. Okay.
Yeah, when it comes to H.P. Lovecraft, there's a very low survival rate if you encounter any of his deities and creatures and whatnot.
I found that out the hard way. Still fun game, even if I was in a coma in the corner with glasses on. Oh goodness. But I know other influences yours like Dick Smith, legendary.
Yeah, absolutely legendary. We just lost Dick Smith this past year, and he was an incredible innovator. He started in television at NBC. He was the first regular makeup artist for a television station. This is back in the 40s. He went up through there for, I think, something like 14, 15 years, and then struck out on his own doing features. And he did Little Big Man, he did The Exorcist, he did The Godfather. And then when it got into the late 70s, early 80s, where people were doing makeup effects, where you're literally seeing things change and transform on screen, that's when Dick Smith did Altered States, and he did Scanners. And this was stuff that was like, it was mind-blowing at the time. You'd see these trailers, and it was, you'd see these little snippets of stuff, and it's like, oh, I got to see that movie. I saw fingernails growing out of that guy's hand. So, yeah, Dick Smith was a major influence. When I was in college for dental lab, he introduced a course that was, it's not really a correspondence course, but he would send you lessons through the mail, and you would, but to even take the course, you had to send him photos first and be approved. And I remember it was a glorious day when I got a little note from Dick Smith saying, "Your work looks promising."
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I started taking the course, and this is when he was still writing it. So I was going to school up in Lexington, taking dental lab, and once every couple of months, a big manila envelope would arrive with Dick Smith's return address, and you'd open it up, and it was the next course. What's it going to be? Is it about sculpture? Is it about making teeth and eyeballs? Is it, mold making? Just an incredible time.
Wow. That is awesome. And that you not only got to take it, but I mean, like you said, he was just building the course at the time too. So that's, right at its fledgling. Because I know it, it's not, like I said, not anybody could just get into this. You really had to show promise.
Yeah, and at the time, you had to work to find information. There were magazines and articles and kind of how-to things, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And if the articles weren't extremely comprehensive, you could easily make a mistake and end up, blowing $40, $60 worth of materials because of just a little error that you made. And that's why I kind of think, this is a bit off topic, but people have asked me, I have a friend or a nephew or a niece who's interested in getting into makeup effects. Should they go to school? Mm-hmm. And I usually say, no. If you want to do all aspects of makeup, if you want to learn beauty makeup and high fashion and that kind of thing, by all means, go to school. There's a lot you'll learn there. But when it comes to makeup effects, if that's what you want to do, then do it. Just do it. Mm-hmm. Go on YouTube, find the tutorials, go online. There's information everywhere. Just do it. Because when you make those mistakes and you're the one that's bought the materials, you're not going to make that mistake a second time, because you're going to realize, wow, I just flushed $50 down the drain. Right. I'm going to figure out what the heck I did wrong and do it right the next time.
Now, speaking of things that have gone wrong and experimenting.
I know where we're going.
In your youth, when you were just a little makeup guy. No, I'm just kidding. But I think you worked on doing a live cast on yourself, your brother.
Well, if I recall, I was 14 at the time. Jeff was 12. My brother Jeff.
Yep.
I had read in Cinemagic magazine the proper way to do a live cast, which is to use a material that releases from skin and from your face and the whole thing. But it's an expensive material. And I thought, I don't need that. I'll go down to the local, I think it was Keister's at the time, the local hardware store.
Yep.
Get myself some plaster, and, we'll just mix up a nice bowl of plaster. I'll have Jeff slather it on my face, and I'll have a live cast, and I can start making monsters, and I'll be in Hollywood in no time.
Note to anyone listening for this podcast, do not use plaster in attempting making a live cast. Go ahead.
Absolutely, because anyone who's ever worked with any type of plaster or gypsum knows that as plaster sets up, it releases heat. It's an exothermic reaction. It releases heat to the point where if you mix up a thing of plaster and sit there and look at it, you'll see steam coming off of it as the heat is getting rid of the water in the plaster mix. So not only does the plaster start getting really hot, but it's locked to my eyebrows and my eyelashes. I can't get this thing off my face. So finally I'm like, Jeff, in this muffled sort of, buried under this thing of plaster, Jeff, get Mom! So cut to Mom comes in and she's like, what the? So she moms it out. Moms are moms. They figure this crap out when it comes to their kids have done stupid things. She got some pliers, some channel locks or something, and she's breaking this stuff away bit by bit. But when it comes to my eyebrows, it's like it's locked to that hair.
No.
So she lifts up the plaster and takes a razor blade and has to literally cut my eyebrows off and some of my eyelashes. And then I went to the hospital because I had chemical burns in my eyes. So got drops for that. And then, I'm in high school. I'm like a freshman in high school or whatever. So it's now what do I do? I've got eyebrows that look like, a checkerboard or something. So I borrow Mom's eyebrow pencil and I'm trying to fill them in. And I just remember trying to keep my head down for a couple of weeks until they finally grew back.
You suffer for your craft, don't you, Dave?
Well, you suffer for your craft when you're stupid or when you take shortcuts. So yeah, like you said earlier, a word of warning, never ever use plaster of any description on bare skin. And there you go. That's my disclaimer.
Good. That is our safety tip for the day. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh my God. That hurts to laugh on that one. I'm sorry. I mean, I could just see you now. I mean, thank God it didn't get worse, like to where you couldn't get off your face. You couldn't breathe. I mean, it could have gone worse.
Yeah, it could have been an absolute horror show. I actually got lucky because it taught me a lesson, and I've never ever done that to anyone else.
Right.
I'm a bit of a stickler these days for safety and testing things to make sure that I'm not going to hurt anybody or burn anybody or damage anybody. It's bad news.
Yep, most definitely. Now you, from the early days of doing this, you I know you entered a bunch of like costume contests and things.
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
So how did that go and how did that come about? I mean, I have a feeling you put a lot of effort into your work.
Yeah, I mean, it was doing projects that I wanted to do, like a zombie makeup, or like I built this ape suit that had a mask with a self-contained mechanism. When you opened your mouth inside the mask, it would make the lips bare away from the teeth.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
And it's like I was putting so much money into these projects, that it was basically to build up a portfolio in anticipation of ultimately moving to LA and try and pursue a career. But I was putting so much money into these projects and so much time, I thought, well, I need to try and do something to recoup some of that expense. So I started a couple of years, I think it was only 2 years, maybe 3 years. I did costume contests at the Brass.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 year over in, what's the place in
Bowling
Louisville?
Green. There was one place in
Bowling Green?
Bowling Green, Yankee Doodles.
Yankee Doodles, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that one. And they offered a pretty good sum. I think theirs was like $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was 1 year I got the Brass and I got Yankee Doodles both, and I think I scored something like $1,200 or $1,150, something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it kind of helped offset because in Owensboro I couldn't buy anything either, so any materials I needed I had to pay shipping as well from LA or from wherever, New York or something. So yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah, and that was pretty damn cool too, because like I said, I get to see those costumes that you made, and it was like I'm sure when you walked in, people were like, "Fuck," my little mouse costume, and it was like you just have no idea.
I thought my sexy nurse outfit was going to win.
It was a winner, just not the prize money. Alrighty. Well, I know you also you did a lot of early stuff. Working over the years. Before you went out there, I know you worked at the WEHT television station.
Yeah, I was Channel 25 at the time over in Henderson.
And what'd you do for them there? And who did you meet that became a really good lifelong friend there?
Well, the funny thing is I finished college, dental lab, and I never worked a day doing dental lab. I was certified in the whole thing, but I realized if I had to sit there making teeth for the rest of my life, I was probably going to shoot myself in the head. So I was kind of looking for something to do, and my sister Kim worked at the station. They were in between news directors, which means things were kind of in a state of flux. An editing position came open. I had never edited videotape a day in my life, but Kim got me an interview. I went in, and in 3 days, I was trained on the 3/4-inch machines editing videotape. So I started working there. And after about a year and a half, my friend Louis Cheney, who I had met through there, taught me to shoot, and then I shot news and sports and whatever for the next 2 or 3 years after that. But in meeting Louis, he used to do, we used to do a lot of little weird little silly movies. And, I would do makeup effects here and there for them, did an alien for one, and just weird. I did the world's most god-awful worst cat person makeup for another one. I'm pretty sure all the videotape of that has been destroyed. At least I hope so, because it was awful, absolutely awful. But we did that stuff, and then of course, I tried my hand at acting in a couple of them, which was like ill-advised.
We'll get to more of your acting career a little later on, Dave. I have a nice little section about that too. What? No, it's coming. Don't worry. But you also did. I know with Louis, because I actually was out on a couple of these. Were pretty funny. They would do like I guess we like little tags or teasers for the news broadcast. I know there was one. There was a movie coming out, and for some reason it was an Indiana Jones thing that we were shooting with Louis. Back of a car and like dragging behind.
Yeah, we were dragging a guy. What was that?
It was one of those little boards that you go under a car for a mechanic to work on underneath the car.
Yeah, one of those little creepers. I remember that, but I don't.
It was the some kind of movie review or something for the weekend show.
Yeah, it was either a review or it was like, they're going to be playing that movie on Friday. Man, I hadn't thought of that in years.
It was so funny because here we are back of a truck and shooting on a little abandoned part of the road. And you had a whip, and he's doing his little speech, filming him as he's being drugged behind the truck. Then he's rolling over the place like he's being drugged on the ground, and he's giving his review on the ground. You couldn't hardly hear him because of the sound of the.
And talk about, once again, kids don't do this.
No.
I don't know whoever came up with that idea, and there were a group of us, but no sound rational mind in the group apparently.
Yeah, and then if I remember correctly, it ended with the state police coming by saying that we weren't supposed to be on this part of the road because it was closed.
That sounds right too.
Yeah, that was pretty funny, and we're like, okay, that's a wrap. But he ended up getting up.
Were you there just to
helping you out? You were just one of those things where hey bud, what's going on? You'd ask Jeff to help you with something, and I was there, and so I'll go. So
yeah,
which happened a lot.
Another set of hands, please.
Exactly. So a lot of fun. A lot of crazy stuff. Oh my god! But that was dangerous, but it was funny, and I'm sure that's probably at their archives somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. Probably deep in a box in Louis Cheney's garage.
Yeah, I'm sure he has it. That's awesome. Now from there, you you did a. Well, I guess we call it not. It's a local movie. It was it shot in Bowling Green? I think maybe it was the Haunted Ween.
Haunted Ween, yeah. It was shot in Bowling Green and Nashville.
And that was your first movie before you decided to take the plunge out to.
Yeah, that was my first movie. I had done some projects with Louis, and I'd done something for Theater Workshop of Owensboro. But I saw in the paper one day that they were doing a horror film in Bowling Green, and I think I called the paper. Somehow I got the number for the director, and I called him up, and I said, "Yeah, I'm just checking to see if if you're looking for somebody to do your makeup effects." And he gave me this response that was like, yeah, we're going to be interviewing for that position next week. You know, like he had a stack of people to choose from. And then he asked me, have you ever made a cut off head? And I was like, sure. Well, can you bring it in when you come talk to us? Yeah, no problem. So I think it was Louis Chaney's niece, who was about, 9 or 10 at the time. Mm-hmm. And I did a live cast of her, and she was able to hold this little grimace face, so it wasn't just placid. It kind of had like a little look to it. And made this super simple latex polyfoam head, bought a crappy cheap wig and stuck on it and painted it up and took it with him. And as crappy as it was, and it's crappy to this day, when I took it in, they looked at it, and I think they were thinking that they were going to be dealing with mannequins, like store-bought mannequins, and can we try and make this look like something? And so I got that job, and I learned a lot on that job. I learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah, it had a lot of scenes. A lot of makeup effects for that movie.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. We stabbed a guy in the throat with a machete and pinned him to a tree and cut off a couple of heads.
Baseball bat with the ball in the mouth.
Yeah, baseball bat guy, and twisted a girl's neck around, which was an effect that doesn't come off well in the film, but I actually designed that effect, and then I shot it on videotape and cut it together and showed them how it needed to be shot and edited to work. Mm-hmm. And they just disregarded that. They just kind of shot it the way they wanted to shoot it. And so when you watch it in the movie, it's like, well, what happened to her?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I learned that lesson in terms of making assumptions that people are going to understand how to shoot the stuff. And also assuming that they're going to pay you all the money that they owe you, because I never got my final check for that film.
And it was
probably only like $150, but at the time in 1989,
that's money.
That's a lot of money.
Yep.
That's a lot of money, and it was hard-earned money. But
well, maybe you can get some of these DVD royalties since it's out on DVD.
Yeah.
Or not.
Where do I sign up for that?
Yeah, I'll get the website I'll put up on a link. I'm just kidding. We are going to link your IMDB page, if that's okay with you.
Sure, that's
so that people can get a look at because I guarantee you, people will be going through the list, and we'll talk about a lot of these today. But people will go through the list and be like, "What? He did that?" So I know that's going to happen. So
yeah, that actually happened to us last night. I came home. I was hanging out with David last night, and I came home, and my wife was watching Dead Silence. And I was like,
Dead Silence.
I've been meaning to watch that movie. And then today, when I was scrolling through your IMDb page, I was like, no way. So I showed my wife, and she was like, holy shit, we just watched that last night.
That's awesome. It's available on Netflix for anybody else to watch it.
I tried to watch it. I honestly couldn't get through it. I rented it when it came out, and I was like, this is terrible. But apparently a lot of people really like that movie.
Well, and even as bad as you say that Haunted Ween was, I know a couple of people that are absolutely fanatic about it. I mean...
Well, yeah, you sent me a text a couple of days ago saying that it does have its own little cult following, and it's like, well, that's great because, I think it's terrible, but it was my first movie. So I'm glad it's not just complete obscurity.
Right. And, and everybody has to start somewhere. Even our podcast, we're getting better all the time. But,
right. You got to start with jackasses like me.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly right. Well, Dave, you're kind of holding us back. I'm going to wrap this up. Yeah, whatever. No.
I'll get my coat.
Just the opposite. Just the opposite. So I guess I guess at this point, you decided to, if you're really going to get serious about this, that you're going to need to move to where the action is, California.
Yeah, I don't remember if there was a certain epiphany moment, but I remember I was working at Channel 25, and I don't know if somebody said something to me or if it just occurred to me, but it was like, I'm 25 years old. A lot of people, when they get into this, they move to LA when they're 18 or as soon as they can. And I remember thinking, if I don't do this now, I'm probably never going to do it. And I'm always going to have that, man, I wonder what would have happened if I. So I said, screw it. I had an apartment at the time, and I I got rid of that and moved in with my mom for a year to save money, and just set a date and said, this is when I'm going.
Yep.
And I had gone to LA a couple of times to basically shop my portfolio around. I would call as many makeup effect shops as I could and say, can I come by and show you my stuff? And based on those trips, I had gotten a pretty positive response. And I thought, well, I think I'll at least be able to work. We'll see how it goes from there. Mm-hmm. And I moved out, and, our old buddy Bryce and his wife Tanya, that was another big moment, because they had been saying to me, come out, and finally they said, look, move out. You can stay with us as long as you need to until you get a job and find a place. Mm-hmm. And so there was that security blanket of not thinking, well, I'm going to be sleeping in my car kind of thing.
Right.
And then fortunately, when I moved out, I had a job within, I think, a week or two, which was just the fortuitous thing of meeting Todd Masters, and he needed somebody to make teeth for Buffy, and boom, it just happened.
Just happened. Yeah, because I know you've done it. You did a couple other, like, very small little, I guess, aspects to movies, like Super Mario Brothers, the movie.
Yeah, that was one that came about. Todd hired me for Buffy. Buffy led into Tales from the Crypt. And so I was at Todd's for about 3 months. And something I learned that was very important is very, very much of this business in terms of getting jobs is networking. Mm-hmm. You meet people and somebody calls them for a job, they can't do it. And they say, well, call this guy. Which is how I got the Super Mario Brothers job, because a guy named Mark Maitrey built the Yoshi puppet, which is like the little dinosaur. Mm-hmm. He built it in his garage. He had like a really nice little garage shop setup, and they built this animatronic thing, and he was looking for somebody to paint the skins for Yoshi, the foam latex skins. They had painted one, and he just needed a bunch more painted to match. And it was a recommendation. I'm not sure who recommended me for that, but I got that job, and it was kind of funny because I showed up and, I had painted stuff so people knew I could paint, but I hadn't painted with the type of material that they wanted me to paint with, which was rubber cement paint. I didn't know how to mix it, how to make it. And so I had to ask all those questions. And then I think they were looking at me like, oh, we hired this guy to, but then they gave me a set to paint, and I painted them up, and they loved them. And so, yeah, that was probably a week's worth of work, but anyway.
Well, and like you said, you had to start somewhere. And that was the little bit of, and there's I guess a lot of people don't know that some movies are what they call union, and some movies aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to pay your dues or have so many hours to get union, and you can't be union unless you pay so many hours. How did that work out for you, and to where you were able to to get into, I guess, SAG?
I used to be in two unions. I used to be in SAG, which was Screen Actors Guild, but I was in that for puppeteering back when we used to actually make animatronic creatures, which doesn't happen a whole lot anymore because mostly it's digital.
Right.
But the main union that I needed to get into was 706, which is Makeup and Hairstylists Union. The way it breaks down is there's union films and there's non-union films. If it's a big film, it's going to be union. The only way to get into the union is to have 30 days working on a union show. But you can't work on a union show until you're in the union. So there's the catch-22. Mm-hmm. So what happens is some movies start off as independent, and then they turn union. They strike at some point and turn union. So if you're on a film like that and you get your 30 days, then you're eligible to join the union.
Nice.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like the first opportunity I actually had to join the union was in about 1994 or 1995 when we did Demon Night, which was a Tales from the Crypt movie. And I didn't realize at the time, one, how hard it was to get in the union, and two, how important it was to be in the union to work on a lot of these films. Right. And it was also expensive. It's expensive to join. So at the time, I kind of blew off that opportunity. And then a few years went by, and all these gigantic Rick Baker shows are happening, like The Grinch and Planet of the Apes and the Nutty Professor movies. And I'm getting calls from people, from friends saying, we're looking for people. Are you in the union? And I'm like, no, I'm not in the union. I'm trying. And then finally, I got a break and got in. It was a real mistake on my part, because I spent, it was 10 years from that first opportunity until the second opportunity finally presented itself. Right. And it cut me out of a lot of work.
You did a lot of work in the meantime.
I did. Yeah, I did tons of work in the meantime, but I was limited to either what was shooting out of the country, because the union rules don't really apply there, or independent stuff. Yeah, I did tons of work. I definitely worked steadily. It's just I had to turn down things like the remake of Planet of the Apes, which is a crap movie, but the makeup is extraordinary. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing.
Yes. Yeah, and you had mentioned Rick Baker, and there was you had told me once. Well, actually, I was out at LA for a gamers conference, E3.
Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah.
Yep. And right there and you were nice enough to let me and a couple of my buddies crash at your house, slept in your living room.
I think that was the first time, and then
yeah, and you have I guess you have your own little workshop at your house, we'll call it, and you we were going around, you were showing us some of the stuff that you had done, and you had this Frankenstein head sitting in your corner, but it was Frankenstein that looked like a famous person, not Frankenstein.
Oh yeah.
And we were all like, what is this? And then the neck had instead of having the little bolts, it had like a little door. The little door with for a battery pack.
Yeah.
And you had told us that it was from a Radio Shack commercial that you had done with Howie Long.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty big deal, because I remember seeing that commercial, and you can still see it on YouTube.
Too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And how did that all come about?
This one is a weird case of like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. Whatever that thing's called. Mm-hmm. That commercial was directed by Nick Cassavetes. And Nick Cassavetes had worn an old age makeup that was done by Rick Baker for the movie Life, an Eddie Murphy movie. So when he wanted to do this, this is back when Howie Long and Terry Hatcher were doing the Radio Shack spots. He wanted to do this, so naturally he calls up Rick Baker. Rick Baker's looking at it, and he's like, it's a commercial, and they want this in a week. Call Dave Anderson. So they call Dave Anderson. Dave Anderson looks at it, and he's like, well, it's a commercial. They want it in a week. He goes, call Dave Snyder. So in Nick Cassavetes and the production company's mind, I'm suddenly elevated somewhere up there in the stratosphere with Rick Baker. Although I've never worked for Rick. I've met Rick a few times, but I'm not at that level.
Right.
I'm a guy who's still got a shop in his garage, which is great, but I don't have a multi-million-dollar Rick Baker shop.
Right.
But anyway, I get the gig because I'm stupid enough to say, okay, I'll do it. And so I have to fly to Montana, where Howie lives or lived at the time, and do a life cast on him, come back and produce not only the Frankenstein makeup for him, but the dummy head, because, we couldn't, like you said, the gag is instead of bolts in his neck, a little door opens, and they put in a Radio Shack battery to reinvigorate him and, make him good to go again. So that had to be a dummy head. That we couldn't do that on Howie.
They wouldn't let you cut him up.
Yeah, for some reason they still want to keep their actors intact. I don't know, after all these years.
Hollywood.
But, so yeah, that's how that one happened. And it was crazy. It's like that was literally one where I did not sleep for 2 full days before that stuff was due on set, because there was just no time. I was in my garage the whole time, just trying to get the stuff done. There's in terms of, plaster isn't going to set any faster because you're on a deadline.
Right.
And paint's not going to dry any faster because you're on a deadline. So you're always very carefully figuring out all these moments so that the thing is actually done and ready on time.
Yeah, and then when you got on set, I guess you waited like a couple of days of shoot, and that was it.
Yeah, we shot Howie in the makeup one day, and then I think we shot the dummy one day. I think that's how it went. I don't know, man. I was so like lack of sleep at the time that that one was a blur. But that was also a job where I heard, I think for the only time in my career I'll ever hear this, because when they called me and I put up a bid, I said, look, this is going to be expensive because there's very little time, which means I gotta hire a bunch of other people. I've got to have people working overnight and whatever. And they said, money is not an object.
Wow.
Wow.
And I was like, because usually it's the opposite. Usually it's like, we've got no money. Can you do us a favor? Because next time we're going to have a big show and we'll pay you $1 million and whatever.
Right.
But the way they reasoned it was they did 10 of these spots a year, and they said, this can be our expensive one. And then we'll do 3 more where it's just Howie and Terry sitting in a room talking.
Oh, there you
And
go.
so I was like, okay, you know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then, like I said, that's a commercial that a lot of people to this day even still remember that commercial. So.
Well, and Howie had the perfect face for a Frankenstein. He's got this square, square jaw, very square face. So you put a square top of the head on top of that, and it's like aesthetically, it's perfect.
Yeah. He looked really good. He really did. Yeah, they pulled it off. And then of course they had her as the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. They brought a makeup artist out from New York who was supposed to do her Bride of Frankenstein makeup, and I'm in the middle of doing Howie's makeup, and they're doing her in another room, and they come over and they're like, this guy, he can't, he's trying to paint her white and it's all patchy and weird. Is there anything you can do? And so I had to go over and airbrush her white so he could do her makeup over top of that. And this is a guy they flew in from New York, who's hello, I'm Pierre or whatever,
A high-end fashion makeup artist.
Yeah, exactly. And he couldn't paint her white.
Wow. That's awesome. He saved the day.
Yeah, well, now I'm trash talking. I can't do that.
No, not at all. But I mean, that's good because you're learning how to use the airbrush technique. Paid off.
Yeah, the airbrush is a giant time saver. I mean, whenever you've got makeups that cover a significant portion of somebody's body, you could get into 4 hours of makeup. You can cut that down to hour and a half, 2 hours with an airbrush, and you just spray paint.
Good to go, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, like from there, I guess you've done a bunch of movies. If we threw a couple of titles out at you, would you know right off the bat what you did on some of those, or how it was to work on that kind of movie?
Do I seem to have Alzheimer's? Yeah, I would think so. I mean,
right.
There have been moments when somebody said, "Oh, you worked on something," and I'll be like, "Really? Did I? I don't know." That's
funny.
But yeah,
that's funny. Because I know your IMDb page has a ton of your work on there, but even then, it's not not everything is on there, and
no, not at all. Actually,
you don't get accredited for everything, unfortunately, right?
Well, that was a point I was going to make earlier. Like last year, I did one feature, but mostly I did what we call day checking for television, which means somebody, they need a bald cap one day, or they need a burn makeup or whatever. And they call and say, hey, can you come down and work on so-and-so TV show? So if I just go in for a day or two, there's no way I'm getting a credit on the show. And that means a lot of times that credit never shows up on IMDb. I probably worked on about 20 or 25 different projects last year, but those could have ranged from a week of work to a day of work. None of that's going to show up on IMDb.
Right.
Unless I write to IMDb and put it on there.
Right. Well, I know you you did a bunch of CSI episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, CSI New York.
Yeah, and you did it was a TV series that you did, which I think you probably got some credit for, but so Babylon 5.
Yeah, B5 I was on a little more regularly. I did the first. That's another one where I sort of shot myself in the foot. I did the first 3 or 4 episodes, and then I quit to go do a feature. And that was the year that the show went union, and also the year that the show won an Emmy for makeup.
Oh, damn.
So it's like,
which means you would have got an Emmy at that time. Then you're saying.
Yeah, well, the way the Emmys work is I've worked on about 7 or 8 different TV shows that have won Emmys, but the Emmy is awarded for the specific episode, not for the season or for the show itself. It's awarded for a specific episode. So if you happen to get the call and work on that episode, then you get the Emmy.
Nice.
So it's been like Tales from the Crypt won an Emmy. True Blood has won a couple of Emmys. I think Carnival might have gotten an Emmy for makeup. There's been a bunch of TV shows, but I wasn't on the episode that got nominated. So
right, just kind of a bad luck of the draw on that.
It is, and it's funny because a friend of mine who I don't think has ever worked on television up until last year took on a few TV projects, and he got nominated twice.
Wow!
Once for American Horror Story, and once for I forget what the other one was, but he was blown away. He was like, I don't work in TV, but it was slow. There were no features, so I worked on TV and got nominated twice.
That's
2
awesome.
different shows. So, yeah.
So you never know, really.
You never know, and it's yeah, it's a fun thing. It's like I've always felt like if I ever win an award for anything, I just would like it to happen, while my dad's still alive.
Yeah,
because I think he would find that he'd get a kick out of that.
Well, I know one thing that happened to you because of you working in the film industry, and I was lucky enough to be invited down to when the Owensboro city gave you a key to the city as recognition for your work, and that was pretty...
It wasn't a key to the city. It was like a mayor's award.
Mayor's award. There you go.
Yeah, mayor's award, and that was nice. It's like that was the one that made me realize how absolutely petrified I am at public speaking. Because I remember I got up there and I was trying to say a couple of things, and it was just like it was like Charlie Brown's teacher.
Awesome.
But yeah, that was a very nice. It was a nice recognition.
It was, and I believe your parents were both there, so that was
yeah, and that was
family and friends.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was really nice for my folks. It was when my mom was still alive, and that's the real cool thing behind that kind of recognition is making your parents proud.
Exactly. And I know your mom was very proud of you, and I know your dad still is very proud of you, and as well as a lot of your friends are too. Just saying.
Well, the way I see it is I got them all fooled.
He's so sneaky. That way. So let's go back to some of these movies that you worked on. I know, like I guess you would call it wasn't an A title, I guess, The Prophecy.
Yeah, that's what I quit Babylon 5 to go do. But
and who starred in that?
That was Christopher Walken.
Yeah, Christopher Walken.
It was supposed to be. Imagine this.
Okay.
The role of Satan was originally cast as Malcolm McDowell.
Wow.
Malcolm McDowell became unavailable, so who do you get? Let's see. Who's like Malcolm McDowell? Who could we possibly... How about Viggo Mortensen? So that whole concept changed from a creepy makeup to now Satan is a handsome whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a cool movie. I got to remove Christopher Walken's eyeballs, and yeah, we did some fun stuff for that one.
Not really, just a makeup effect, right?
Just a makeup effect. He's still alive and viewing.
Too funny. So what was it like working with somebody of that caliber? I mean, even then, at that time, he had won an Academy Award, so...
Oh, yeah. That's the only time I've ever literally come down with a case of flop sweat doing a makeup.
Yeah? Nervous as hell?
Nervous as... Yeah, very nervous. And, we put this... we had to make his eyeballs go away. So instead of just doing little pieces over his eyes, I did a whole forehead to bring that part of his face out a little bit so we'd have some depth in the empty sockets. So I put that on, but then that means I've got to put fake eyebrows on. And I had never placed eyebrows before. And this sounds ridiculously simple, but eyebrows are a really tricky and important part. You know, if the eyebrows aren't right, it doesn't look like the guy, or it looks weird, or it looks like a makeup. And I'm trying to place these little lace hair pieces, these little eyebrows, and it's not going well. And I actually had to walk out of the makeup trailer for a minute to just like chill out and have a moment, because I was like dripping with sweat. I was like, I was panicking.
Wow.
But got it done, and it's one quick shot in the film, and, you know, blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. But it was a...
Oh, I remember it. It's pretty good and pretty scary.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty successful illusion. So, but it was scary. Walken's an interesting guy. It's like, you know, he was really cool about the whole process, from the live cast to the makeup and everything. But he's so random. It's like we shot that in Arizona, out in the desert, in a few places, and I remember one day we're riding in the van going to work in the morning, and there's conversation going on and this and that. And then all of a sudden Walken chimes in. He's like, you know, there used to be dinosaurs. There were dinosaurs here. And everybody's just like, where did that come from?
That's great.
Yeah, it was totally random.
Oh,
but,
that's so funny.
But he was awesome. He was great to work with.
That's cool though. That's cool. And then it was a big movie, but it wasn't a big movie for horror movie fans. It was big.
Yeah, it was written and directed by the same guy who wrote Backdraft. It was his first directing job, and it was a really good script. But I think in the end, it was just it wasn't a very tight movie in terms of it sort of plodded along,
right?
And it was a fairly convoluted story. So unless you're really paying attention, you can kind of get lost to like, what's going on? What's happening? And
it's available on Netflix now. Not that we're a Netflix sponsor, but just if somebody wants to see that and they haven't seen it, and they have Netflix.
I'm working on a Netflix movie right now. So
there you go. We're going to get to that in a little bit too. Yay. Oh, goodness. And then I guess you did with Kiss the Girl. That had, was it Morgan Freeman in that?
Yeah, Morgan Freeman. I barely worked on that. I went down. What did I do for that? The thing I remember most about that movie is when I was at the lot, and I can't remember now if we shot it at Paramount or Warner Brothers, but the lot caught on fire.
Oh, wow.
Like one of the stages caught on fire, and they evacuated everybody. And it wasn't a big deal. It was somebody's paint department. You know, somebody had left paint rags in a bad place or something. But to be honest, I don't even remember what I did on that. I think I painted some of the masks that Carrie wore.
Right.
Or something.
Right. Well, now I know you'll, because you've told me a story about this next movie, Species 2.
Yeah. A lot of times we refer to that as Feces 2, but
well, it wasn't that bad, but the makeup effects were great. Wasn't too funny.
Yeah, that was kind of the last of the really practical effects kind of movies, at least that I worked on, because there's a lot of things that we built for that film that nowadays producers would never consider building practically. They would just say, okay, that's a digital shot.
Right. What was the actress that starred in that?
Natasha Henstridge.
Natasha Henstridge. Now, and didn't you have to do body cast on her?
No, I don't.
Live cast or something?
We live cast her face, but the interesting thing about that movie was there's a scene in the film where Natasha is strapped into a chair. She's completely naked, but with sort of these big blue straps covering her breasts and her, her private parts.
Right.
And they stick her in this chamber and they spray gas in, and she gets these blisters all over her body. And then they heal very quickly. And the point of the scene was to illustrate how she's an alien and she can heal quickly. So a friend of mine, Chris Nelson, and I were, we needed to do this makeup on her, which is putting on these little gelatin blisters and kind of a weird paint job and whatever. And I remember an issue came up sort of at the last minute with somebody saying, well, there should be a female makeup artist doing this instead of two guys. And it kind of went round and round, and we were on location in Maryland, and it was like, okay, well, who are we going to get to do this? And finally, I remember saying, well, let's just ask Natasha if she's comfortable with this or if she wants a female makeup artist. And they asked her, and she said, well, I've pretty much been naked in everything I've done. It's not a problem for me. So,
Nice.
So Chris and I did the makeup, and it was no big deal.
Awesome. Well, I mean, it's a crucial scene to the movie.
It is, especially, if you're 14.
Oh shit!
Or 50 going on 14.
I'm just saying.
Hey, who's not these days?
Exactly. Yeah, she's an attractive woman, and there definitely was a lot of detailed makeup on certain parts of her anatomy that most people don't get to apply makeup to. Just saying.
Yeah, Natasha was another one. She's just wonderful. She gave me this little, when we wrapped, she gave me this little, it's an incense holder, but it's like this little weird alien head that was like it was like a local artisan there in Baltimore had made and had a little shop where they just sold, handmade things. So that's kind of a cool little thing that I have from her.
Definitely. That's awesome. And, like you said, you were respectful and, did your work as a craftsman, not as a weirdo perv applying makeup, so. Awesome.
That's the thing about it is like a lot of people, they think, oh, you're working on a scene where, you've got a beautiful actress who's disrobed and whatever. Boy, that must be really sexy and cool and whatever. And it's not, because, you're always trying to respect their dignity. Mm-hmm. You're also, generally you're not on the set when they're shooting the nude scenes. It's like you try and get them ready and then you exit, and it's stressful because, it's difficult for them. Some are more comfortable with that sort of thing than others, but what you're always trying to maintain is professionalism and making sure they're comfortable and that they know you're not, that pervo in the room.
Right.
So.
Well, and like I said, you do this a lot too. You downplay a lot of the movies you've done on, and different movies affect different people different ways. A lot of people like certain things, and other people hate them, and some people love them, and some people, some movies that you've done have won Academy Awards, and some movies you've done have been like straight to video. And
exactly.
That just happens.
And some movies I've done never were released at all.
Oh, there you go. Maybe we can talk about some of those later. You did Virus, which was it Jamie Lee Curtis and oh my gosh, who else was in that?
That was Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Sutherland,
yeah,
one of the Baldwins.
Yeah, yep. So what was it like doing that?
That one, it's another one that kind of fades from memory. It's like I did a lot of work on it. We built this animatronic character called Alexi, which was terribly shot, and in terms of the way they filmed it and the way they featured it. It's another one. I was on location for a long time for it, and that's back when I was working SAG, which is SAG means Screen Actors Guild. It's back when we used to build animatronic stuff and puppeteer it, and if you were a puppeteer, that was considered a performance. So that was actually the show I got into SAG on.
Nice.
But yeah, there's not anything that I would point to in that film that would say, oh, that was my particular thing.
Right. But like you said, if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have gotten to SAG as early, and
exactly.
So
yeah,
it's a stepping stone. I know you did Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, which is, there's not a lot, you wouldn't think, there's not a lot of makeup effects in that movie.
No, we did a dummy of Elizabeth Hurley, where she takes her face off and, starts shooting with the rifle barrels coming out of her boobs and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So that was a big silicone, like half body puppet, and then makeup on a stunt woman for part of it.
Right. But still, I mean, it's and that's one of those that you had never said anything to me about. I'd never known you were on it, and looking through IMDb, I'm like, what the hell? What did you worked on that? You know,
Yeah.
It was a big movie.
Yeah, it's a good credit to have on the resume.
Yeah, definitely.
Back when Mike Myers was still funny. Oh, gosh, did I say that out loud?
You'll never work in this town again, pal.
Yeah, I got to be careful. I'm working with a bunch of comedians right now, so.
Well, I know like a movie that had a lot of promise, and a lot of people like it. I know Tony's a fan of, and I am too, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah, great comic book, not so great movie. You can't take an R bordering on X rated comic book and water it down to a PG-13 and expect to have anything watchable.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, and that's what they did. But and I noticed that's one of those movies where you're unaccredited. You don't get credits for it.
That was a weird one. It was the way that worked out was the way they do credits is they generally draw them from the crew list on the film. I was working for Steve Johnson's company at the time, and when it came time to do credits, the production company told Steve Johnson's company, "Look, you can name 15 people or 20 people or whatever it was." They had a number, and there were probably 50 people that worked on that. So the coordinator at Steve's shop tried to give credits to the people who had worked the most on the film, and he knew some people weren't going to get credits. He assumed that I had gotten a credit with the makeup team because I was on the show for the entire time. Mm-hmm. But I didn't get a credit for the makeup team because they assumed I was going to get a credit through Steve Johnson's company. So in the end, I didn't get a credit at all.
But you know what? Even on the DVD behind the scenes has a really nice interview with you working on the makeup for
Does it?
Dr. Jekyll. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I knew that there were a couple of shots where I'm standing there, but I didn't know there was an interview.
Yeah. There's a couple of, like, questions to you, kind of thing. A little, not as much as what you're on the Star Trek interview on the behind the scenes on that, but still, pretty cool.
So there's my proof. I did work on it. I did. Yeah, that was a great one. It's like that's a good example of. Sometimes people ask, how much? What's the funniest show you ever worked on? And sometimes it's like League. League was a terrifically fun show to work on. We did that in Prague in the Czech Republic, and there was a lot of socializing. The actors were all really cool, and people like to go out and do stuff. But the movie itself is kind of crap, and a lot of people don't even remember it. Like you said, a lot of people do like it, but a lot of people be like, League of what?
Right.
But it was terrific fun to work on. It was great. I was over there for almost 6 months.
Wow.
On that show.
That's awesome. And and the film company, I guess, put you up when you're there, right? So.
Yeah, they fly you over and they put you up. It's funny. They had me in a Hilton hotel, and that was the year. That was 2002. That was the year that Europe flooded like crazy.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So the Hilton at the time was right near the river, and their generators and different things were in the basement. So the basement started flooding. So they evacuated us all to these different little hotels around Prague. And then as it turned out, one of the girls on the show, I think she was with the costume department, had a friend who was a Czech hockey player. And he was currently in New York playing hockey. So his apartment was free. So I was able to get the stipend from production to get his apartment. So I had this awesome apartment.
Wow.
With like a jacuzzi bathtub and whatever. It was great. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Living the life. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it was just 2 weeks ago on the show I'm on now. We had to go a little bit away from where we're working, and they put us up in this place called the OK Casino. OHKAY.
Okay.
And it's like from the moment you walk in the front door, the place smells like cigarettes all the way till you get to your room. It was a dump.
Wow.
It was a dump. So it comes and goes in terms of the accommodations and all that stuff.
But like you said, it is what it is, right?
It is what it is. You know, I feel very fortunate that I was able to figure out relatively early in my life what I wanted to do and was actually able to do it. You know, and there's a lot of hard stuff and there's a lot of long hours and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I am very fortunate to get to do what I love to do.
Yeah. Well, and another project I know that you worked on, which I mean, it would be a remake of a classic, which I know Tony's going to have a question for you about remakes, but he wants to know what you feel about it. But you did the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And back in like 2004, I guess is when it was released, but like 2003, I guess is when you were working on it.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Go ahead, Tony. What's your question for him first?
I'm always curious about how everybody feels about how they took the zombies from walking to these running, rage-filled zombies, and to me, it in a way it made the story better, but at the same time, it was kind of like stepping on the toes of a classic, and it kind of upset me a little bit.
Well, I agree with you there. I'm trying to remember now who started that. Was it Dawn of the Dead, or did 28 Days Later come after that?
Probably 28 Days Later was after that, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know they weren't proper zombies. They were like, you know, I don't know, some kind of
the rage virus,
rage
or
medicine,
whatever.
or yeah, rage virus. You know, I don't know. It's like when it came to Dawn of the Dead, I worked on that, but I wasn't on that show from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. It's like I did some tests early on, and then we shot that in Toronto, Canada. And I went up for about 6 weeks on it. But, you know, I don't know where that decision came from. And I think probably when I first heard, you know, now the zombies are running and this and that, it's like, yeah, especially when you're calling it Dawn of the Dead, which is something based in the Romero,
right?
You know, the Romero mythology. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when you see it, it's kind of kick-ass, because one of the things about zombie movies for me was always, well, I can get away from these guys.
Yeah,
you know, if you're trapped in a room or if you're at the end of a corridor with no doors, yeah, you're screwed. But for the most part, I always kind of felt like, well, you know, I can push this guy over and get away.
Stick and move.
Because they're slow and yeah, stick and move. So I actually didn't mind the fact that, you know, it amped up their danger level by like 100, because they can run you down and eat you, as opposed to they got to catch you in a corner and eat you.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yeah, it was definitely more scary. I think it's just attaching something like that to a name that's already, you know, it has such a cult following to it. Everybody knew zombies from just being the slow, lumbering, just massive amount of zombies were going to come and get you eventually. Yeah. And to me, that was always the scary part. It was like, okay, I can escape them now, but they're never going to stop.
Yeah, it's the inevitability of they're gonna gang up and get you,
take you down. You also did some movies with a well-known actor, Carrie Always. I think you did comic book villains,
and American Crime.
Yeah, and you've worked with him on a couple of movies. What's it like working with somebody repeatedly? I mean,
well, the way that one came about, I was working with David Anderson at the time, who's a 2-time Oscar winning. He's got a couple Oscars.
Sorry, interrupt you. In case somebody didn't know, Carrie Always is in The Princess Bride.
Yeah,
pretty
Princess
much.
Bride.
If you know that, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, he was friends with Dave Anderson from it was one of those funny movies with Charlie Sheen, Hot Shots Part 2.
I remember that. You did that too, didn't you?
I did a couple of little things for that, yeah.
Energizer Bunny.
But Carrie knew Dave from that, and I don't remember if American Crime or Comic Book Villains was first, but he called up Dave Anderson to design his makeup. And Dave didn't really want to go to set with it, so he put me together with Carrie to go to set and apply the makeup. And that went really well. We got along. And then about a year later, Carrie called me up and said, "Hey, I've got this other movie. It's another character makeup thing." Once again, these weren't makeup effects. They're not tearing people's throats out or whatever. It was character makeup. So it's like, how can you make this guy look different subtly through a fake nose or sideburns or a little bit of aging, this kind of stuff, but not lose who the actor is you're looking at. So he called me up for the second one, and the first thing I did was call up Dave Anderson and say, "Hey, Carrie called me. I know he's like, you're his guy." And he was like, "No, take it, do it, run with it." So I did that second show with Carrie, and that went really well. But these days, Carrie is still acting, but he's doing more producing and that sort of thing. I think his brother is like a big casting agent or producer or something in Hollywood. So, but yeah, that was good fun doing those shows with Carrie.
Yeah, and like you said, it's it's not always the blood guts rip your heart out kind of shot or take the head off or can you make a head? But there's other subtle aspects to makeup that you've worked on, like Lords of Dogtown is a skateboard movie. And what would you think you would need to do for that for special effects?
Well, one of the things I did was I did a set of teeth for Heath Ledger because he was playing a character who's based on a real guy. Mm-hmm. So we changed Heath's teeth for that. And then another big thing with that is, a lot of people have tattoos these days. And this was a movie based or set in the, I think, mid to late 70s. Mm-hmm. So you got to get rid of any tattoos that would not have existed in those days, and then possibly add tattoos that are of the proper time period. And then you've got things like hairstyles are completely different, mm-hmm. facial hair. So what you look at on the surface that might seem kind of simple can actually get really, really work intensive in terms of trying to place something in a certain time period and keep it accurate so that nothing, you don't see a certain character and go, "Whoa, he looks like a guy on the street today."
Right.
So
that's pretty awesome though. That, and you got to work with him too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was actually really cool, because I did Heath's teeth. I had models of his actual teeth. And at one point there was a day toward the end of the time he was going to be working. And I was in the makeup trailer and he came up to me kind of very shyly and he said, "Hey mate, I was wondering if you can make me a set of vampire fangs."
Yes.
So
awesome.
I did some vampire teeth for him. It was easy enough to do because I already had his tooth casts and stuff. And that was great fun. Heath was an amazing guy, man. He was like, at that time he was, I believe at that time was when he signed on for Brokeback Mountain. And I remember him saying, this one is either going to make me or it's or it's not.
It's going to break his back.
It's going to break his back. But Heath was so classy that, when he finished on the show, he threw a party at his house. And it wasn't a party for certain people on the crew. It was a party for everybody, down to the grips and the catering people and the craft service people. It was like, come to my house, here's a party.
That's very cool.
And it was like, yeah, that's just classy. It's like I haven't seen that a lot. I'll see actors throw parties and, it's for a select few, it's the producers mm-hmm. and the director and, maybe a few other cherished members of the crew. But this was like, that was Heath. He was a classy guy.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that, man. That's pretty cool. Cause, he's gone now. But man, he put in some good work, and I think his Oscar that he won was well deserved.
I agree. I to me, that's the absolute ultimate portrayal of the Joker.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. I know. And then from then on, you did a couple other. I guess actually this was before that. I'm cheating using IMDb.
You son of a!
Oh, know it, bastard. But you did, because we used to, I know we watched, like Return of the Living Dead. We love those movies.
Yeah, I did a couple of those.
And then they kept making them and making them. They made a few.
I guess they still are. I don't know. I think I worked on 3 and 4 or 4 and 5.
I know 4 and 5, and I know 5. 5, you actually have a little part in 5.
No, that's a guy that I made up to look like me.
Is that what it is? Oh,
yeah.
Don't lie.
My credit, actually, I don't think I have a credit on it.
No, but I think it's because you have the makeup credit, I think.
Yeah, exactly. The way I was listed on the call sheet was Stoner number 2.
Yes.
And why did you have to play a stoner for this movie? Couldn't they have hired anybody? Tell me the story behind that.
Okay, the story behind this is we shot that film in Bucharest, Romania.
Romania.
In Romania, which is actually one of my favorite countries. I love Romania. I've done 3 shows there. I think it's a wonderful place.
Awesome.
You know, for third world Eastern Europe, it's great. But the way it worked out is they only brought over like 6 American actors, which were the main kids in the film, and then Peter Coyote. Mm-hmm. And they pretty much cast the rest of the film there, which means they had talented actors. You know, they had people who could do the part, no problem. But they all had very thick Romanian accents. And I think one of our producers, we had a Russian producer and an Italian producer, and one of them was a little worried that they were going to have to ADR everything after the fact. In other words, dub all these voices. So they said, well, what other Americans do we have here? Okay, we got this crew of dopey makeup effects guys. Let's just put them in the movie. So pretty much all of us ended up in it at one point or another. And my buddy, Mike, I know so many Mikes. There's Mike Mikash. There's Mike, not Mike Manziel. Starts with an M. My buddy who plays Stoner number 1. And I've drawn a blank on his name, and I've known him for 20 years.
That's all right. We'll look him up while you're talking.
Yeah, look him up. Mike, anyway.
He's Stoner number 1 in the cast call. We'll look that up.
He's Stoner number 1. So yeah, they said, okay, we're gonna put you in the movie. So at one point we're next to a pool party, and then we're in a car and get bitten by zombies, and then they blow up the car, and I'm desperately trying to act the whole time, and so there you go.
It's a cute part, especially.
Thank God it's direct to video.
Since I know you, and you know, like people that know you, when they see that scene, they're like, "Oh my God, there's Dave." Meserman,
Mike Meismer.
Meismer, that's it.
Mike Meismer. Yeah. Mike, I think, might have been the guy who recommended me to for the Yoshi gig. Yeah, I think it might have been Mike, because he was coming in doing nights at Todd Masters' shop at the time, and I think he might have put my name in to go do the paint job for that Super Mario Brothers way back in the day.
Well, you know, like you said, you've touched and you know, as far as worked with a lot of different people, and you know, because of this happens to this, and opportunities open up, you know, because you know I'm doing this work. Hey, can you do this for me? You know, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I've actually been able to, even though I'm on location in New Mexico, I've been able to do that a couple of times in the last week, where I'll get a text from somebody saying, hey, are you available for 2 days this week to do blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, no, but so-and-so is free. Call them, you know? And so it's all that give and take that, you know, the current job that I have, I got because I went to a friend's birthday party a few weeks ago. I guess a month and a half ago now, and bumped into a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in probably a year. And we start talking, and he's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm kind of doing a little bit of this and that, but I'm sort of free. Next thing I know, the next week, I get a call saying, can you come do this thing? So that's how I got this job. I bumped into an old friend at a party.
Wow.
That's how it works.
That's crazy. Well, another big project you worked on, which huge box office, was 2 little movies back to back, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, and At World's End.
And Live Man's Chest. Oh no, yeah, World's End. Yeah, that's another one. That's one that's great on the resume. It was a cool job to work on. Certainly, we got to shoot that in Bahamas. Mm-hmm. But on that one, I wasn't doing any lead characters at all. I was I was with a gigantic group of other makeup and hairstylists. We were processing like all the background pirates and the stunt guys, and in that movie there's like a ship of Asian pirates, and there's just tons of pirates all over the place. So that was a situation where we had gigantic tents set up, and we would have something like 200, 300 people come through a day. And you dirty them up, and you make them look sunburned, and you make them look greasy and gross like they haven't washed in a while, and some of them you'll stick the odd mustache on or the odd scar, and then off you go next. And you do that, your day starts with processing pirates for about 3 or 4 hours. Wow. And then it's funny because there were a lot of makeup artists and hairstylists that signed on for that show. We would get our guys ready in the morning, and then you'd go out on the boat, whether it was the Black Pearl or one of the other ships. Well, a lot of these people are like, oh, no, I get seasick. I can't go out on the boat. In other words, I'm going to sit on my butt the rest of the day and kind of do nothing. So one of my friends, Ken Niederbaumer, and I, we were constantly assigned to go out on the boat, to do touch-ups. You got to maintain these guys, make sure mustaches don't fall off or they don't blow their nose, and the rest of their face is now dirty and greasy and their nose is white, So you watch that kind of stuff all day. So yeah, those were good, and it was cool to get a trip to the Bahamas, but it's a great credit, but that's not really one that I had a significant amount of sort of creative input on.
You were there for both back-to-back, right? Didn't they do both those back-to-back?
Yeah, but when you say back-to-back, it doesn't mean like we shot 2 and then we shot 3. It's like there's scenes that they needed for 2 and scenes that they needed for 3. So if we're on the Black Pearl, then one day you're shooting a scene for 2 and one day you're shooting a scene for 3.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
They're like you kept busy then.
Mixed. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Wow, that's crazy. But it ended up being a huge blockbuster movie, because I remember when that came out, the local paper here, they went for a messenger, did a little write up on you, and they put a picture in the paper of you standing in front, like a selfie, in front of like 200 people made up as pirates. It looked really cool.
Yeah, there was one that I sent out as a Christmas card that year, and we finished all of our Asian pirates, and it was actually more like a group of like, 25, 30 guys. And, I knew these guys all pretty well. Some of them were stunt guys and some of them were just, just locals. But I was like, hey guys, I want to get a picture. So I sort of just like jumped into one guy's arms, and he's like a couple of them are holding me up, and anyway,
it's an awesome picture. It is cool, and that was nice too, because I know that a lot of us, your friends, your brother and your sisters, and your mom, I believe, was all at the movie theater the night it premiered. Just everybody was going to see the movie anyway, but it was kind of nice to see it all together and with you. You came in town for that one.
Yeah. It was nice, and it was kind of awkward at the same time, because I worked on it. It was cool to have that group of people together, but it's also like, okay, now what? It's like the movie ends, and I got a chance to say hi to everybody, but I would actually rather, if it was something like that, I'd rather go see a movie with just a friend.
Right.
And then you can talk about it or not talk about it, or, oh, that sucked, or, it was great, or whatever.
Yeah.
But in that giant group, it was kind of awkward, because I'm not really the kind of person that likes, I don't enjoy public speaking, and I don't really, I'm a bit more private than that. So that was kind of weird, especially when it came to family and friends, because it's like, what am I supposed to do now? Say something?
Exactly. Like you overcoming refreshment
like,
at the basement. Yeah. No, but I mean, it was still, I guess the thing about it was, that was cool, since I was there too, was just, kind of being there with you and a big group of us, kind of, I guess, showing support and appreciation for you and your hard work that you've done over the years. And there wasn't any more expectation than that. It was just, we were going to see the movie, and to get to see it with you was kind of cool.
Yeah, and you're right in that aspect, or in that context, it was great.
And
And I got a credit on that one.
yeah, you sure did. Because I remember we all said we're like 3 rows deep in the movie theater, and they're like picking up trash all around us, and they're looking, and the people look and they go, "Is he in the movie? Is he?" And I was like, and we're like, "Yeah, he did the makeup." And they're all like, "Oh, really?" Standing around, and then of course when your name came up, all of us, the little group, were like applauding and everything, and they're all just like, "Oh, is there somebody famous here?"
Well,
Oh.
that's the funny thing, because when I was still living in Owensboro, I was very interested in who had worked on films, and so I would be the lone person, the single solitary person sitting there through the credits. Everybody else was up and gone. And then I moved to California, and you go see a movie here and everybody knows somebody or has worked on something. So you see a movie here and everybody stays through the entire credits. So yeah, when that one came up, our little group was all there. Everybody else was gone. They're trying to come in and sweep up the popcorn and the spilled Cokes. And and we're all, and they must be looking at us like, what is up with these people? They don't come up.
Yep. And it was awesome. It was really awesome. And like you say, it's not something I've done it since, but I mean, it's one of the, it was a nice little thing to do. And your mom was with us and got to see it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that was cool.
Very special.
My sister Kim put that together, and it was great. But I told her we're never doing that again.
Well, I felt privileged that she actually thought of me to let me know to be there too. So,
dude, you're part of the family.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I love you guys, and you know that. Well, back to, oh gosh, we get all misty. Back to I know you did.
So sweet.
Now here's something you did do that it was because you never know how things are going to go. But there was a series of commercials that Geico did with the caveman.
The caveman
didn't work on any of them.
And but that sprung a TV series.
Yeah.
Called The Caveman.
Yeah.
And how many episodes did that run?
I don't know. I know we shot more than ever aired.
I know there's 3 you got credit for, so I think at least 3 aired. Probably.
Yeah, I think so. I actually, that was a great gig for me because there were 3 main cavemen guys in the show, and they all had their own makeup artists. And I was brought in to do, the new caveman of the week. So like the cave woman and cave kid and old man cave guy. So it was cool for me because these guys, the other makeup artists, the other 3 main makeup artists, they were doing their same guy every day. So for them, over the course of a show like that runs for a long time, it gets a little boring. You're doing the same makeup over and over. It's great because you can refine that makeup and make it beautiful and perfect in every way. But for me, it was really cool because I was getting the new character every week. So that was a fun one, but I ended up exiting that one a little bit early because a little show came knocking called Star Trek.
Oh yeah, Star Trek. Tell us about that and how that came about, and what all you did for that.
It was another one that was a recommendation from a friend. The department head on that show did not know me. We had not worked together. I think she contacted 2 other people who were not available, and they both gave her my name. So I was called in for an interview, and got on the show.
Awesome.
And so yeah, did Zach Quinto's Spock makeup, and did the Green Girl. And did, gosh, I don't know, various other characters. But then that one ended, and the second one came up, and my friend Dave Anderson became department head on the second one. So he brought me back on, and I not only did Zach Quinto as Spock, but we had the opportunity to do 1 day of shooting with Leonard Nimoy.
Wow. That's
and
awesome.
we completely recreated his makeup from scratch. I sculpted his ears, did 2 different versions to give him the approval. Leonard Nimoy he's a really nice guy, really nice, really cool. But at the same time, he's particular about that makeup because he's worn it. You know, he had worn it at that point for 40 years, off and on. So he kind of broke it down for us in a really interesting way, in terms of, you know, the bangs, the haircut are at a certain angle, and the eyebrows need to be at a certain. It almost came down to like a mathematical equation of how everything worked together. The length of the ears, the way the ears pitch forward a little bit at the top. You know, there's a very fine distinction between Mo Howard, Spock, and an elf. if you take my meaning.
Yes.
You know, it's like it can easily become, even on Leonard Nimoy, it can become a caricature of the Spock makeup if everything is not very, very precise. So that, you know, that to me was like, it was not only a dream come true because my brother Jeff and I used to watch the old Star Trek episodes. You know, they were in reruns when we first watched them, and we had to watch them on a station out of Bowling Green, which I think was WBKO, maybe? I don't know.
Like that.
It was a TV station. We could only get it like in fuzzy black and white on our television set at the time, but it was Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
And it was awesome. And then all those years later, to get to actually apply Leonard Nimoy's makeup was like, you got to be kidding me. It was amazing.
Yeah. A dream come true, like you said, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's my career highlight to this day. And I don't know whatever might possibly eclipse that in the future, but for now, it's my career highlight.
And that's a pretty damn good highlight to have on your resume. I tell you that. And you've said that he was a really nice gentleman to work with as well. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. He even brought in. I think he went online and found a bunch of photos of his makeup from the original series and printed out pictures. And he would say, "Okay, this is one where this didn't work and this didn't work. Here's a picture where everything worked perfectly." Blah blah blah. So we had a one or maybe two test makeups with him to refine everything, and then we actually shot his sequence as Spock before principal photography began. We shot it at the Bad Robot production office, which is J.J. Abrams' company. And I think we went into their screening room and we put up a blue screen and we just shot him there. And then Zach Quinto was there giving him, you know, lines off camera. And I remember the day we did it, we got him all fixed up and in makeup. And he was, you know, holding a hand mirror, kind of looking at his face in different angles and checking it out. And then he looked at me and he said, "You people do good work." Awesome. And I was like, "Okay, excuse me, Mr. Nimoy, I'm just going to go tear up in the corner for a second. I'll be back."
Wow, that had to make you. Oh, I can imagine how it made you feel.
Yeah, it was really an incredible moment. It was like, okay, we work hard and we make sacrifices and the whole thing, and this is what it's for, is moments like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, Dave. That's really cool. Because, I mean, you know, a lot of people have done the makeup on him. A lot of people have worked with him. But, I mean, you had your moment, and it's on film, and it's a great scene in that movie, too. It's pivotal.
It is. And, you know, the funny thing was, it's like, I don't think at that point I had seen a script, so I didn't know the plot of the film. Mm-hmm. But I'm sitting there in the room off to the side, you know, ready for touch-ups if anything's needed. And Leonard Nimoy is sitting there, and he starts to deliver his lines. And he says, "Khan Noonien Singh is the most dangerous adversary that the Enterprise ever," you know, something to that effect. And I was like, holy smokes, that's what this movie is?
Hell yeah.
That Khan?
And what a good Khan he was, too. God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was funny because, you know, the secrecy on those films was so intense. When I was allowed to read the script, I had to go to the production office, and I walked with a guy who was like a really nice guy, Sean, really nice guy, but he was like the security guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy that, made sure that everything stayed secure. He walked me into a room. They literally opened a safe, a 4-foot high safe.
Wow.
Combination lock. He pulls out a script. He's like, okay, you can go in this room and read this. And they didn't want you, you had to turn in your phone. You can't take pictures of the script. No notes. Read the script.
Wow.
And then you turn it back in. And I remember as I was turning the script back in, the first AD, Tommy Gormley, who's the Scottish guy, he was the first AD on the first film, and he was there on the second film, and I was turning the script back in. And he looked at me, and he saw this big dopey grin on my face, and he goes, "It's good, isn't it?" Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's so awesome. And you know what's funny about that, your secrecy, which is, you have to. I mean, I understand that. Most people may not know about it. We'll get into that in a second. But you called me the day the movie came out, and you're like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing. I was watching, get ready to watch this special on History Channel about it." And then you were like, "Well, here's something I couldn't tell anybody until now." Now that the movie's out and that you worked on it, I had no idea that you had even done anything on that movie until the day it came out.
Yeah, they keep, they like us to keep everything as tight as possible. The scripts are literally printed on red paper because you cannot Xerox black type on red paper. It'll just come out black.
Wow.
The call sheets. Now, a call sheet is a paper that you get at the end of every day that tells you what you're shooting the next day. It lists the scenes, it lists the actors, it lists everything. So everybody's prepared for the next day's work. Every character name and every actor name were fake names. So I don't have one in front of me, so I don't remember what some of the fake names were, but I remember on the first movie, we had a Winona character and we had a Winona actress. But because they were using fake names, it's like, which Winona's working tomorrow? What the hell? We're the crew. I'm not going to go online and give this away. And the other weird thing was, especially on the first one, every time we went on location, there would be photos online before we even finished shooting for the day, of that location. Wow. And I kind of got to a point where I felt like, the production was, they were directing their security efforts too much at the crew and not enough at some paparazzi guy with a giant lens who's able to,
zoom in from a mile away.
Yeah, there was a picture of Zach that went online the very first day we shot him on the first movie. We were in a cemetery in Whittier, California at a chapel, which is in the first movie. There's a scene where Spock goes before the Vulcan Council. Mm-hmm. And they want him to, he says, "Screw you, I'm going to Starfleet." And that was actually a chapel in a cemetery in Whittier, like in the middle of nowhere. It was like an hour drive that morning at like 4 a.m. or whatever. And some bozo was able to get a picture of him. Like, I think he went to the bathroom at some point. He's walking along but they're directing all this crazy security at the crew, and it's like, guys, maybe your efforts are could be directed in a more productive avenue.
like actually catch somebody that's doing this instead of giving us a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Crazy.
Yeah.
So, with that said, I mean, you've got a lot of other movies that you've done, so people can go online and check that out as well. I know Tony's really, really excited that you worked on Cabin in the Woods. Yeah. So if I don't cover this with him and you on here, I'll get in trouble. So,
well, we'll definitely do that. But actually, I had a question for Tony.
Okay.
I don't know, Tony. Are you a Star Trek fan at all?
A little, I am. I'm not like Dave, but a little I am. The classic stuff more than the newer movies.
Well, yeah. See, that's me too. I'm very much a fan of the original series, and something that I've often thought about is, if I had nothing to do with the last two movies, would I have liked them? Yeah. And I don't know. I honestly don't know, because it's definitely a departure. Yeah. they did come up with a good hook in the first movie, which is, they basically reset the universe with the whole time travel and Spock Prime thing. But I don't know if I would have liked those movies. They're definitely full of action and stuff, but in a way they're almost interchangeable to a degree with so many action movies that come out over the summer. So I'd be curious to know in, like alternate universe Dave Snyder, would I have liked those movies or would I have said, oh, it's crap?
Right.
Well,
it's just kind of going back to what you were saying about the zombie thing.
It's almost hard. It's almost hard to like something that changes its origins.
Yeah,
that's how I feel about a lot of comic book movies too. It's been really hard for me to like any X-Men movie because it's so different from the comic books.
Yeah, see that I was a DC guy, so I never really knew X-Men or a lot of the Marvel characters.
Right, but I guess if I guess with the younger generation seeing the new Star Trek movies, I'm sure they liked them. And I liked them for what they were, but it was a little different the way they changed some things up. So
yeah,
but for what they were, they were really interesting to watch. It was a good time.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. Like I said, I kind of wonder if alternate universe Dave would have liked them. I might have been like, they changed too much. They screwed my childhood.
Yeah, I think I guess that's always been my issue when you start messing with the source material that somebody's familiar with and they change it so much.
Absolutely.
It's just so bad. Like the World War Z book, I love that book. I've probably read it 20 times. And then when the Brad Pitt movie came out, I was like, why'd you even put that title on that movie? It's nothing.
I am 100% in agreement with you. Somebody gave me that book as a wrap gift on a film, and I loved it. And I read it a few times. And then I knew, because I'd read some stuff online, I knew before the Brad Pitt movie came out that it was, Brad Pitt fighting zombies. And it's like, the book is an anthology.
Yeah.
It's all these different stories taking place over the entire world. And now it's just Brad Pitt fighting zombies. I mean, it was a good movie. I liked the movie. But like you said, why the hell did you put that title on it?
Yeah, they should have just named it something completely different.
They could actually...
Brad Pitt versus zombies.
They could actually go back to the book and still make that book into a different movie.
Somebody needs
Absolutely. That book could be a TV series. That book could be, I mean, there's already Walking Dead, but that book is brilliant.
Yeah, in every way. That's what there's maybe 3 books that I've ever read more than once, and that's definitely one that I'll forget about it and then just walk past the library at the house and be like, oh yeah, I need to read that again.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And of course Tony's a big fan of classic movie monsters. Huge fan of all the classic movie ones, and he's got some really good tattoos on his arm. And he's also a fan of Christopher Lee. He's a big fan. He's got a huge tattoo of Christopher Lee on his arm.
I'm a huge Christopher Lee dork. My whole left sleeve is stuff when he played Dracula. So that's my wish list one day. Oh yeah, and there for a while he wasn't even talking about them. So I was like, well, if I ever get to meet him, he probably won't even want to look at my arm. So that's kind of a bummer. But I guess over the last few years, he's
loosened up.
He's been talking about him again, and then plus he's doing metal music now, and I'm a big metalhead, so that makes that guy even that much cooler now.
Christopher Lee is doing metal music?
Yes.
Yeah, he's doing this like a power
metal.
Appearing
in videos, or
no? Like
actually...
he's putting out metal albums where he's singing like operatic, really power metal style vocals with metal guitars and drums in the background.
We'll send you the link.
That's insane.
It's true. It's not a made up thing.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Well, you want to hear something really messed up?
Sure.
And just because Christopher Lee came up made me think of this. I was kind of cleaning up my computer last night and deleting a bunch of old crap, and I came across some old emails that I had somehow missed and never opened, and I opened one of them, and one of them was from Tammy Lane, who is another Oscar-winning makeup artist. She got an Oscar for one of the Lord of the Rings movies. Or no, for Narnia. She had sent me an email asking me if I could come out and work on The Hobbit for the last few weeks in New Zealand. Oh my God. I never got the damn email. So I texted Tammy last night when I got it, and I said, hey, you know what? This is weird. I just got an email from you from like 2 years ago. or whenever it was. And I said, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm sorry I never got back to you. And she wrote me back and she said, yeah, I thought you just blew me off.
Wow.
I was like, no, I probably would have come. And I possibly might have met Christopher Lee at that point. But yeah.
Still, but that's, you know, and that's probably the best thing you did was to throw that out there that you missed it and it was, you know, so because she probably thought, what an asshole, what a, you know, he's not working with me again. I'll never call him up, you know. But now maybe you're back on the list again in case something else comes up.
Well, the funny thing is, at that time, I didn't know Tammy. She had probably just gotten my name from somebody else. But now I know Tammy socially because of my girlfriend and just different people that we hang out with. So anyway.
That's cool, though. Well, that makes it even better now because she's like, next time she sees you on the social setting, she's like, okay, so maybe he's not quite the dick I thought he was.
Exactly.
But we know better. What a dick. I'm just kidding.
I do my best.
All right, Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods.
That movie had so many different great classic Hollywood horror movie aspects to it that it threw it all into one thing. And I know that you made the movie, and then it was a few years before it came out. So what can you tell us about that movie, working with Cabin in the Woods?
Well, the reason it was a few years before it came out was because MGM, I think it was MGM, went bankrupt. And that's why the James Bond franchise got put on hold for a while. Because MGM went bankrupt and suddenly nobody knew who owned what. So, yeah, Cabin sat there for, I think, almost 2 years before it came out. But that one, that's another Dave Anderson project.
Nice.
He got Cabin in the Woods. And yeah, we actually had to move from Dave's relatively small shop in Van Nuys to a shop that no longer exists, but it used to be called the Bat Shop. It was owned by Warner Brothers, and it was put together for the various Batman movies. That's where they would make all the bat suits.
Wow.
Because there's a lot of sculpting and molding and casting involved in creating those costumes. So this thing was always called the Bat Shop, and we rented that out to do Cabin in the Woods. And we had an absolute who's who of makeup effects, brilliant people in terms of sculptors and fabricators, and everybody in town worked on that film. And it was a great experience. It's like we built everything in LA and we shot it in Vancouver, Canada. My main characters were Pa Buckner of the
Awesome.
Buckner family. And of course you see the movie and you never see Pa Buckner. He's always in silhouette or in complete darkness. But it's like, I worked my ass off on that makeup. It's got this really cool thing where it looks like half his face is ripped away with his teeth exposed, and so many details in that makeup that you just, that's one I got to send you guys a picture of.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Just to properly see it, because you don't see it in the movie. And then I did the buzzsaw head guy who's like the Hellraiser dude.
Yep.
He's got the puzzle box thing, and I don't know, a few other characters I worked on. We did tons of mutants and zombies for background stuff. But
Awesome.
yeah, it was a really cool movie to work on, and I loved the script. I mean, it was a nice, tight, short script that just takes it sets up the premise of Cabin in the Woods. Okay, this is going to be an Evil Dead movie. Nope. This is the behind the scenes of what the heck's going on, and it was just awesome. I had worked with there's Bradley Whitford and Richard, the two main guys who are
They were working in the underground, yeah.
Yeah, Richard, what's his name? Not Richard Dawkins. Anyway, I had worked with him years before on 6 Feet Under for HBO. I had to do a dead body of him because he gets hit by a bus in the first episode. And those guys were just awesome.
Jenkins?
Richard Jenkins, yeah, thank you.
And then, I'm looking at IMDb again.
And then I remember I went to the craft service table one day. Craft service is, they set up a table that's got like snacks and veggies and drinks and whatever, just something where you can go get a snack during the day as you're working. Mm-hmm. And I went to the craft service table one day and I ran into Chris Hemsworth.
Nice.
And that's right when he got Thor.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I got Thor. And, you know, he's Australian. So it's like, he's like, yeah, Thor, whatever, you know? And I was like, yeah, dude, that's going to be pretty big.
Gotta be pretty so funny.
But he's another one. It's like all these Australian actors I've worked with, Chris Hemsworth and our guy that we were talking about earlier from Lords of Dogtown, Heath.
Oh yeah.
They're all just so down to earth, and like none of this movie crap affects them at all. They're just normal, cool, nice people. It's an amazing, refreshing change to, you know, some of the Nimrods that you come into contact with who are just so all about the facade and the
image,
yeah, and all the just stupid behavior.
Yeah. I can imagine there's plenty of stories that you could get to that you could tell, but we won't dig into those because you know.
There are a few, but I have to say, for the most part, I think I've been luckier than some of my colleagues because I've heard horror stories that don't even approach. You know, I've had actors who are very, you know, they don't talk to you. They're very standoffish and very caught up in their own, you know, star facade thing. But I've never had anybody who's actually gone out of their way to abuse me.
Right.
And I'm at a point now in my career and in my life and at my age where it's like, if I ever come across that, I don't care how big the movie is. I'll just be like, you know what? I'm not right for this. I'm stepping down.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think you have enough credit and work that, you know, if it's something you don't want to put up with, you don't really have to.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you're up against, you know, an actor who's literally worth millions of dollars, it doesn't matter how long my career is or how many credits I have. You know, that guy's way higher on the food chain than I am.
Very true, very true. But then I guess, like you said, I guess it depends on how you back out of the situation too.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's not going to be like screw you.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be like, you know what, I'm not right for this, so I'm going to step down, and you know, you get somebody that works better.
Yeah, well, awesome. And of course, there's a lot of other movies that you've worked on, that you've been working on. A couple of that you've got finished, which we'll kind of wind up mentioning some of the titles that aren't out yet. But there's one that you are working on right now. Mm-hmm. You are on location. Where?
Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Nice.
Yeah. If you like weather that changes every 30 seconds, we've had everything from snowstorms to right now it's probably about 55 degrees and sunny. But I mean, we've had everything.
Wow. And I guess it's kind of hard to shoot when it's when you have everything like that, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Well, when it gets crazy, you move indoors and shoot for a while, and then you go back outside. But
and this movie's for Netflix, you said?
Yeah, it's a Netflix film.
What can you tell us about it? We'll just let you talk about it.
Well,
I know what you can and what you can't say.
I can tell you a fair bit because there's quite a bit, you know, that's already online and sort of public knowledge. It's an Adam Sandler movie. I guess he made a deal with Netflix for 4 pictures, and this is the first of those. It's a Western. It's called The Ridiculous Six. And The Ridiculous Six are Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider, let's see, Terry Crews. Once again, I'm drawing a blank on names. My brain is failing me.
That's so funny.
But you can find it online. They basically play a series of half brothers. Their father, who is Nick Nolte, apparently had relations with various different women, and through the course of this movie, these half brothers all come together and form the Ridiculous Six, and they go up against various trials and tribulations. But the cast is like insane. The cast is incredible. It's like last week we had Steve Buscemi and Harvey Keitel both in.
Wow.
And the interesting thing for me with those two actors is I worked with both of those guys about 20 years ago on different projects. I did a Tales from the Crypt episode where I made Steve Buscemi's eyeball pop out of his face, dribbled down his eyeball popped out, dribbled down his face, lands on the floor, and then Roger Daltrey from The Who puts a cigarette out on it. So
wow.
we got to talk about that. And then for Harvey, I did a set of teeth for him for a movie called Monkey Trouble.
Oh, yeah.
I think you and I talked about this yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then was, his character, it's a lot of cool facial hair pieces and stuff, and then some teeth. So we got to talk about that. But it's like, riddle me this. If you were going to cast someone as Mark Twain, the historical real-life character Mark Twain, who's the last person in the world that you might consider for that role?
Steve Buscemi?
How about Vanilla Ice?
Vanilla Ice.
Yeah. Yeah, at some point, I haven't met him yet. He's not here yet, but at some point he's going to be playing Mark Twain.
Well, I think he's about to go to jail, so you might not be meeting him at all.
I heard there was a little bit of a hullabaloo maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. He borrowed somebody's bike without telling. That's all it was. Little simple things. Yeah, that's it.
I do that on a daily basis.
I just kept it at his house forever.
But yeah, it's a pretty cool job for me because it's not tearing out throats and it's not making monsters, which I love.
Right.
But it's a character makeup thing. So, and it's amazing how different you can make somebody look just by adding a mustache or various odd things that are pretty simple. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. So, and this is, how much longer do you think you have on this shoot?
I'm going to be here until the beginning of May. I think the first week of May we finish.
Wow, that's awesome. Got other projects, I guess, lined up after this, or is it just kind of wait and see what happens as you become available?
I have something that I'm negotiating on right now, but
yeah,
who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
I know you did work on, which is in post-production of the new Maze Runner movie.
Yeah, Scorch Trials. That was also here in New Mexico. That was like October, November, and December of last year.
And that's coming out this year with the success, I guess, of the last Maze Runner movie. And and that's pretty cool. And then there's another movie. IMDb says you did The Boy.
Yeah, The Boy. We shot that last year in. Was it last year? I think it was last year in Colombia, in South America, and that was insane. It's like. There was no money, no time. My stuff got caught up in customs. So the first week and a half I was there, I had nothing to work with. Just making stuff out of the little tiny bit of stuff that I actually carried with me. That's always tricky. It's like when you travel for work, a lot of my stuff, my makeup stuff, a lot of the paints and the different things I use have alcohol in them, which means you can't fly with that.
Right.
Because it's flammable. And especially in this post 9/11 situation, that stuff has to be shipped ground or has to be shipped in a different way. So I got there and I had inadvertently, I took a bag of hair. It's like you never know when you get on location, somebody's going to say, well, that guy needs a goatee. Can you do a goatee? So I took a bag of hair and I marked it human hair. Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting this mixed up. I did, this was when I went to Italy for a show. The Italian customs took that because they were like, human hair? Can't bring that into the country. Anyway, yeah, The Boy. I got to meet Frodo on that one. He was one of the executive producers.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, shit. So I guess, like there was something that you had done with Lewis I kind of wanted to touch on too. If it's cool with you, where you had actually done like a seminar.
Yeah, not last Halloween, the Halloween before.
Me and my daughter and my son went to see that. It was awesome. How did that come about, and what exactly did you do for that?
Well, Lewis and I just kind of started talking about it, and I usually come home every year to Owensboro for Halloween because I've got lots of nieces and nephews over in Bowling Green and cousins, and I kind of fix them up for Halloween. And,
which is awesome that you do that.
Yeah, well, I think I get more out of it than they do. They've grown up with it, so they're like, okay, yeah, For me, it's like, oh, family.
There you go.
But what I've been wanting to get going for a couple of years now, and it's just been tough putting it together because of time constraints, is I'd like to start a life casting business in Owensboro. And life casting is basically making a mold of a person's face or hands or body and then reproducing that as a three-dimensional display piece.
Mm-hmm.
You could do a couple holding hands or, someone's face or a pregnant stomach, that kind of thing. So the lecture thing was, Louis Cheney and I were just kind of talking about this, and he said, well, if you're coming in for Halloween, why don't we do a thing, bless you.
Thank you.
Why don't we do a thing that's, just talking about makeup and what you can do with the kind of makeup that you can find locally as opposed to buying really expensive stuff. If you go to Party City and get this kind of makeup, what can you do with it? So I thought, well, okay, I just worked up a little thing. It was kind of a demonstration of what sort of stuff you could do on the cheap for Halloween. So that's kind of how that came up. We wanted to do it again last year and just couldn't do it because of work and everything else. But maybe this year.
That's awesome because we really enjoyed it. Because I know we sat there the whole time, riveted. Even though, I said, known you forever. And but my daughter and my son both just they loved it because of the things you talked about, and you actually gave demonstrations too, which was really nice. Actually, 3 or 4 different makeup effects that you could do, that anybody could do, with things that you could purchase locally here in town, not something you had to spend a lot of money on.
Yeah,
and that was great. Yeah, I think it went over really well. And I hope that you do it again.
I would like to do it again. I think I'd be more comfortable doing it a second time. I don't know if how much you came across how nervous I was.
Oh,
because it's like, yeah, it's like I'm not nervous about doing the makeup, but I'm not a public speaker. I'm not one of these people that likes being on the stage. Blip, 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 look at me.
Well, maybe you should do a DVD series, an online series, or maybe a Dave Snyder podcast. We could help you out with that, Just like,
well, I tell you what, the podcast is a hell of a lot easier than the stand in front of a group of people thing for me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, let's talk behind the scenes.
Let's do lunch. Sorry, Dave, I don't know if I pencil you in my Hollywood schedule.
Yeah, right.
Fucking with you. Oh, shit, too funny. But anyway, and I really want to stress too that it's really good that you come in town, because I know that you've been doing this. I mean, pretty much since you had nieces and nephews. As soon as they were old enough to start doing trick or treating, it's a yearly thing that you come in and do this for your family, and I think it's awesome. Like you said, it's family. And
yeah. I mean, like I said, I think I get more out of it than they do. I've missed a couple of years. I think 2008 when we got going shooting the first Star Trek, either 2007 or 2008. I couldn't come in because basically that's when you're doing a lead character on a film who shoots constantly. You can't just say, I got to go out of town for Halloween. It's like, yeah. But most of the years I've made it.
Yeah, and that's I think that's awesome too. It really is, because like you said, it's family, and a lot of people that may not know you. Dave is, even though you I know you're shy around a large group of people, but I've known you for years, and obviously we're comfortable enough that we've joked around, cut up, been on some crazy adventures and a few Halloween pranks. But
yeah, absolutely. Do you remember Billy Woho?
Oh yes, yeah, oh definitely. And what was Alan come up with? Ragman or something?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's right. Ragman. I was thinking about that recently. That was I'm trying to figure out. I had a driving paper route back in the day.
You did.
And for some reason, I think it was you and Alan and Jeff, and it was in the snow.
Yep.
Why the heck did you guys agree to get up at 5 in the morning or whatever it was and do that stupid driving paper route with me?
Oh, it was you. There was a reason for it. I can't remember now to save my life, but it was fun.
It was fun, but yeah, it's like Alan looked over into the field and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I just saw a guy look like he was dressed all in rags. Rag man." And you know, I thought about that about a month ago, and I looked online, and somebody actually did a comic book called Ragman.
Did they?
That was like he's like a, I can't remember. There was some hook to the character, like he was a Jewish guy or like a something. But I was just, yeah, he was like Ragman. He's like a Ragman, you know, comic book superhero guy.
Awesome. Oh God, we did some crazy things. We did. Remember one time we were out for Halloween. I think we even had some like eggs or something in the car. We were planning on having a little bit of fun, and I was like, we didn't even get started, and you got pulled over in your mom's station wagon. And
I do remember picking you up one time and driving like an idiot because we were all, you know, happy and having fun. We weren't drinking or anything that, but just driving kind of crazy on the street. And this cop pulled us over and he was really aggressive.
Yeah.
He was like, because I remember he asked me, he said, "Have you been drinking today?" I said, "I just left my house." And he goes, "Well, that doesn't mean anything." And I was like 16 or 17 at the time. I was like, "No, I'm not drinking. I was just driving like an idiot."
Oh, man. Good times. Good times.
Good times. A lot of good times.
Exactly. A lot of good times. And I really appreciate you you spending some time with us today.
Oh, man, it was my pleasure. It was like, there is one other thing I wouldn't mind touching on.
Go right ahead.
We still have a couple of minutes.
You've got all the time you need, man. Go ahead.
There's, you mentioned earlier that I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft.
Mm-hmm.
And have been since, I think I read my first Lovecraft story in school.
Yes.
Which is called The Outsider. And big fan of his work. And about, gosh, it's been a while now, maybe close to 10 years ago, there was a small group in LA that made a film. A lot of films have been based on Lovecraft stuff, either directly on his stories or trying to hit the Lovecraftian themes and thrown in words like Necronomicon and Cthulhu and whatever. And most of them have not been very good. And I saw this little movie called Call of Cthulhu, which is directly based off a Lovecraft story, and I was amazed at what these guys did. You know, they were from more of a theater background, but they produced a film, low budget. They shot it in black and white, and they made it look like a film that was produced in the time that the story was written, which was 1926.
Wow.
And I was amazed by it. And I went online and I found their website, which is the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. And then about a year or so later, they announced they were going to do another film. So I contacted them and I said, "Look, I do makeup effects. I know this story. I know Lovecraft. And I'd like to, you know, be part of this group." And they brought me in and I did the effects for their second film, which is called Whisper in Darkness. I did some of the effects. There's some stuff in there I will not take credit for because I didn't do. But, you know, now I'm fast friends with those guys. They actually have given me a shop space in their facility.
Wow.
Yeah, where I can go and do, you know, whatever I want to do. And I've done a lot of projects with them. We did a music video. They co-produced a rock opera based on another Lovecraft story called Dreams in the Witch House. And I did a witch makeup for them and done various things over the years. But they're an amazing group. It's like anybody that has any interest in Lovecraft should definitely check them out because they do all kinds of stuff. They also sell T-shirts and mugs and a ton of different things based on Lovecraft stories and Lovecraft themes. And
that's awesome.
So, yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
get we'll get the they have a website, right?
Yeah, if you
Okay. We'll
go
get
to
the-
Google and type in HPLHS, which are the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, it'll be the first thing that comes up.
Cool. And we'll also put that link on our show notes for today's show so that people can click right through our website at outbreakpodcast.com so they can get there for that. And also your IMDb page we're going to put up there as well. And there's one or two YouTube videos that I found. One of them where you were doing the actual green girl makeup.
Yeah.
And they speak to you some, so it's worth putting it on there.
There's another whole story there, but that can be for another podcast.
Well, hopefully you'll come back and do another one with us because we would love to have you back. And,
absolutely. I mean, once Ridiculous 6 is released, we can talk about things that I can't talk about right now because it's in the works.
That sounds great.
Fantastic.
That sounds awesome. Anything else you want to cover? I know there was like a Spring on iTunes.
Spring is a little low-budget horror film that I did in Italy last year, and I think it's about to be released on iTunes sometime this month. It may not quite be available yet, but the trailers are available.
Great. We'll put links to that up there too because we're an affiliate of iTunes, so we'll put the links to that so people can try and get right to that when that's available. And
cool.
Dave, thank you again so much for being on our podcast today. This is
thank you guys. It was a lot of fun. It's a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon.
Exactly. Tony, how'd your beer? Did you finish it off?
I finished it a long time ago.
We'll have to get him another one.
The nervousness of talking to somebody famous kind of got to me. I had to chug the beer.
Dude, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm not famous.
He's infamous. There's a big difference.
I'm Dave.
Let me tell you. He's Dave. It's just Dave. Well, dude, thank you again very much. I appreciate you spending the time with us today. And we'll wrap this up real quick. Dave, stay on the line. We'll get back to you in just a second. So, but we're gonna wrap this up for the podcast. I'm David Anthony.
I'm Tony Brown. And just change your shirt for the special occasion.
I actually put a nice collared shirt on for Dave, make it look really. He can't see me. Damn it! Thanks, Leo.
Thank you for listening